Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. I'm sure that most of you have heard by now. Mario Barrios versus Ryan Garcia headlines The Ring. High stakes. On February 21st, Mario Barrios will defend his WBC welterweight title against Ryan Garcia February 21st at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. It was announced earlier today. The bout between Barrios and Garcia has been in the works since early November, but Monday's announcement revealed that the fight will headline The Ring, high-stakes show on DAZN.
That was the twist. Up until this point, it was originally thought that this would be an exclusively Golden Boy PBC party. It would appear that Turkey El Sheikh is in fact involved, and this qualifies as one of his Ring Magazine events. This is my division, my time, and I'm ready to show the world why the WBC title stays right here, said Barrios. I will be world champion on February 21st, countered Garcia. Barrios and Garcia are both looking to get back into the winners column following a recent run of mixed results. Barrios is coming off a majority draw in July against Manny Pacquiao, a fight many believed the then 46-year-old Filipino legend should have won. In his previous fight in November of 2024, Barrios was dropped and fought to a split draw against Abel Ramos.
Mario initially picked up the interim version of the WBC title in September of 2024, courtesy of a unanimous decision win against Fabian Maidana. Barrios was elevated to the sanctioning body's full title holder. Once former undisputed champion Terrence Crawford left the division. The 30-year-old San Antonio native is the ring's number 10 rated fighter at 147. Barrios scored a career-best win against Yordenis Ugas 2 years ago in 2023, and his losses have come against Gervonta Davis and Keith Thurman.
Don't give him too much credit for the Ugas win. Ugas was coming off the knockout loss to Errol Spence Jr. and a year of inactivity, making it possible for Mario to beat him.
To prepare for the occasion against Garcia, Barrios is linked up with his rival's former coach, Joe Goosen. Garcia and Goosen had a 3-fight run that ended in 2023 following the knockout loss to Gervonta Davis. Garcia last fought in May on the ring's Times Square card and suffered a knockdown and UD defeat against Rolly Romero during his welterweight debut. The matchup marked Garcia's first fight since serving a 1-year suspension due to testing positive for PEDs, following his 3-knockdown majority decision win against Devin Haney that has since been overturned to a no contest. Garcia has secured only 1 win since 2023, an 8th-round knockout and career-best win against Oscar Duarte.
Jesus Christ, the guy's only won 1 fight in the last 2 years, and that gets him a title shot.
Turkey El Sheikh himself took to his own social media to officially announce the fight, saying, "It's official. Garcia versus Barrios. Speed meets power. 1 ring, high stakes, a can't-miss WBC welterweight world title fight, February 21st, live in Vegas on DAZN."
Took me by surprise, Turkey El Sheikh's involvement, because I initially interpreted Oscar De La Hoya working with the PBC as a move away from Ring Magazine and Riyadh Season.
A part of me still believes that. Maybe that's what Oscar initially wanted. You've been hearing Oscar prattle on about how he wants to bring boxing back to America and keep it here. What that would require is less of a presence on an international stage.
And that is what Turkey's cards have been primarily. International cards involving international fighters from all around the world, not just Americans.
Apparently he's involved in this show, and not only that, the exclusive distributor of it will be DAZN. It's not going to be split between DAZN and Amazon like we initially thought.
Does that not mean that Golden Boy is at the helm of the promotion?
So you have to wonder if the same will apply to the upcoming Benavidez versus Zurdo Ramirez fight set to go down in May, lending credence to the notion that Ryan Garcia, in spite of losing to Rolly, he will succeed against Mario when you look at his physical condition.
You mean to tell me that he got like that training with his father Henry in the garage?
You guys already know what I think. I think that Ryan Garcia is back on the sauce, back on the juice, and because Golden Boy looks to be at the helm of the promotion, this time he'll get away with it.
And become WBC champion. This is the safest fight for Ryan Garcia out there, only brought about because of pure chicanery. It's chicanery that got Mario Barrios to that belt. It's chicanery that allowed him to keep it.
The WBC not ordering the Sissoko fight.
The guy who actually fought in the Eliminators to move up the ranks paid the sanctioning fees, unlike Ryan, and it's chicanery that is now allowing Ryan Garcia to fight for that belt ahead of so many other ranked contenders in the WBC's ranked standings.
Chicanery.
Manipulation, special favors, backdoor deals. How does a guy who popped hot for peds, got suspended, walk right into a title shot, lose, then walk right into another one?
Manipulation, special favors, backdoor deals.
Chicanery.
Why the World Boxing Council would play a party to this is because they feel that they'll make more money from sanctioning fees if Ryan has the belt than somebody else, like Mario, like Suleiman Sissoko. Whether he deserves it or not doesn't even come into it.
When you have to pull this many strings to make something happen for a fighter, well, that fighter must not be very good.
Though Ryan being good was never the real reason he was so popular. It had everything to do with his social media following, and it still does. It's what opened all the doors for him, which begs the question, are these people even selling you boxing anymore?
Are they still selling you sport? Or are they selling you something else? Selling you characters instead? I saw this image posted to Instagram.
Commemorating all of Mario Barrios' significant fights, big fights, spanning from 2021 to where we are now. The fight with Gervonta in 2021, the fight with Keith Thurman in 2022.
Both of which he lost.
And none of which were all that big to begin with. The draw with Manny Pacquiao in 2025.
Yeah, I don't think that one was all that big either. Did you see anybody, any credible member of the media reporting big numbers for that pay-per-view?
The old saying goes, if they had something to brag about, they'd be bragging about it. Who did you see bragging about the pay-per-view buys for that fight? And do you think they're going to be bragging about this fight's pay-per-view buys? Realistically, what does Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios do in the open market when Ryan is literally coming off a loss and Mario...
Nobody thinks Mario is any good.
If you want to call him a warrior, you can. If you want to say he's a hard worker, well, maybe he is. But the only real reason he's able to land big fights with what are supposed to be big names is because he's not good.
Buddy, Mario Barrios gets fights with big names for the same reason Gabe Rosado got fights with big names. For the same reason Derek Chisora
and a lot of other gatekeepers got a lot of other fights with a lot of big names.
The only thing that sets Mario apart is that he has a belt, but he only got the belt through chicanery.
This doesn't bring excitement to the boxing space when neither fighter in the main event is perceived as being all that good. How could they be? Ryan lost to a retard and
Mario drew with an old man who hadn't fought in 3 years.
The only hope now is that because Turkey is involved, maybe this will yield a strong undercard, where some of the undercard fights might actually be better than what's in the main event.
You can expect to see a lot of PBC guys on the undercard. I mean, I do. It's not like they're getting more fight dates on Amazon Prime. It's not like they're all of a sudden now giving them a budget. This is a means to get those fighters out there and keep them active. I wonder about the state of that deal, its longevity. No other PBC shows have been announced for this month or the next one, where Matchroom and Queensbury have announced an assembly line of fights for the next 2-3 months. They still haven't. Doesn't this qualify as one? Not if DAZN is the exclusive distributor of the show, it doesn't. Where does that leave Amazon?
Questions that need answers. In men's junior middleweight news, busy Tszyu is preparing for training camp ahead of imminent fight date. Tszyu is expecting to fight again by early April. It was on December 17th when, in his first fight date under his new trainer Pedro Diaz at a catch weight of 157, he convincingly outpointed the previously undefeated Anthony Velasquez. Immediately afterwards, he spoke of potentially fighting as early as February in Las Vegas. Coincidentally, Ryan and Mario's fight is going down in February in Las Vegas, and also of targeting the WBO junior middleweight champion Xander Zayas, but his promoters No Limit are again preparing to match him back in his home country of Australia in what will be a non-title fight as he continues to rebuild.
As he should.
Zayas and the WBA champion Abbas Baru enter a unification showdown at the end of this month. by when the 31-year-old Tszyu, who is returning to Australia to attend his younger brother Nikita's fight on Friday with Michael Zarafa, also at a catchweight of 157, at the Brisbane Entertainment Center in Brisbane, will be back in Miami working with the Cuban Pedro Diaz. He was expected to take a break from the sport to recover from defeat in his rematch with Sebastian Fundora, his third in 4 fights, but instead prioritized working with Diaz and returning to the ring before the collision of 2025. After the victory over Velasquez, his next date could even come by the end of March.
Rushing things is what derailed Tim Tszyu's career from the get-go, blinded by the bright lights of Las Vegas and attempting to make it in America.
Taking on a fight with Sebastian Fundora on short notice that was the exact opposite of everything he was training for. He never should have been in that fight.
I still think it was a setup. You're getting ready for a 5'7", 5'8" guy in his mid-30s who's an orthodox fighter. You end up with a 6'4" southpaw
In his mid-20s.
We've been all through that a million times. Now that he's rebuilding and training with Pedro Diaz and trying to learn some new tricks, what he should not do is rush things for any particular date that would bring him back to the United States, where he's had no luck.
I'm of the opinion that he should spend this entire calendar year fighting guys in Australia in front of his adoring public, where a couple of losses don't mean as much.
Where they can still bill his fights as pay-per-views.
Where he can really give himself time to learn this more defensive approach, this new base style, without being under any pressure.
A year.
The way things are now, Tim Tszyu does not win a belt from anybody at 154. You're not going to win one from Sebastian. You already tried. And you're not going to win one from Bakram.
Yeah, that was a dead end, too.
The only guy you haven't fought is Xander Zayas and Abbas Baru. But the way things are now, they would probably beat you too. So the best thing to do is keep learning, keep building, or rebuilding. Don't be in such a hurry to come to America. It's not going anywhere.
They mentioned him coming to Las Vegas, which gives me the impression that he still has ties to the PBC. If he were going to fight in Vegas, who would be promoting it?
PBC still has a lot of bodies in between 154 and 160.
Got 2 champions at 160.
And Jermel Charlo, the former undisputed junior middleweight champion, has been talking about coming back, so that might be a fight that they revisit for Tim Tszyu, but I maintain that I think he should stay domestic this entire calendar year as he attempts to rebuild.
What about Oscar De La Hoya's video yesterday on Boots and
look, I'm also not gonna go firing back at Oscar because I want to make the fight. If I start coming out going, Oscar, like doing this, everyone's going to get pissed off. I've also been there before. Do you know what I mean? Oscar, Golden Boy and those guys, they made us a written offer for Boots against Ortiz. 55% for Ortiz and 45% for Ennis. I went back to Golden Boy, this is, I don't know, 4 months ago, whatever it was. And I said, I don't think that's fair. Ortiz isn't a world champion. Ennis is a world champion and unified, but he's moving up, so he no longer has a belt. He sells bucket loads of tickets in Philly. Ortiz is really popular in Texas. I think it's 50-50. We sat in a room with DAZN, me, Oscar, Eric Gomez, Pete, and Jared, right, from DAZN. We all agreed on the deal. And I'll say it because obviously Oscar's, 50-50 and 5% for the winner. Okay? So basically 55-45 to the winner.
I love it, but I get the feeling that this fight's doomed. I get the feeling that with just the feeling in the air, the fact that this is taking so long, the fact that these kind of things are coming out. I always say in two sides of the deal, there's guys who make deals, there's guys who disrupt deals. I feel like this deal is getting disrupted, and it's bothering me in my soul because this fight needs to happen and needs to happen now. I don't think this fight's going to happen anytime soon.
Would have been saying, this fight ain't happening next for a myriad of reasons, many of which you're seeing play out in real time. Though what I find interesting is that Turkey is involved in the upcoming Garcia versus Barrios fight, where he is not involved in this one, even though initially he was. Initially, he was the one going to put it together.
For the money that Oscar De La Hoya and Virgil Ortiz's team are looking for, you figure that Turkey's involvement would have helped to smooth things over. But of course, that also speaks to my previous point, that while Turkey's presence in the sport is appreciated, he's creating an environment where these fighters won't fight for market value.
They won't fight unless you pay them more than they are worth and more than a show is worth, which isn't good for the sustainability of the sport and creates further reliance on the Saudis to put these fights together. Oscar De La Hoya gave Eddie Hearn and Team Boots until the end of the day to give them a call and accept his terms, 60-40.
I don't expect that to happen.
They're gonna go their separate ways. The question is, will this fight ever materialize? I never thought it was gonna be next, so I'm not surprised. But could it happen down the line?
Sure.
So long as Virgil Ortiz keeps winning his fights and Boots Ennis keeps winning his, in the event that both boys pick up an alphabet title in either the junior middleweight division or the middleweight division, the fight can still happen. It's not as big now as it can be later on, because I myself don't even think this fight is that big right now. If you did it now,
What's it gonna do, 150, 200,000 buys? Boots is not that big a draw yet, and Virgil...
it's not that big a draw either. I'm not advocating for Oscar De La Hoya to further delay this fight, but that is a part of why Oscar doesn't want to do it at market value, because right now, it's really not that big. If he's gonna put one of his prize stallions in a risky bout like that one, he wants to make the most money possible.
So I'll tell you what I think. I don't think this fight happens at 154, and I never did. I always kind of figured that if Boots and Virgil are gonna fight, it'll likely be at 160, when they've both amassed more marquee value and world titles along the way. It was always a little hard to imagine that you're gonna get two guys like this to fight for no belt at all.
Now, Virgil's got an interim, but that's not a full title.
I figure if they're gonna meet, it'll be down the line, maybe a year and a half from now, at 160, which of course would require them to both stay unbeaten for this fight to stay alive, to stay a conversation.
Next question is, what's the probability that they do, that they both stay unbeaten? I believe that Virgil stands a better chance of staying unbeaten than Boots, not because Virgil is a better fighter than Boots, but because Oscar is a more shameless opportunist than Eddie Hearn. He'll do whatever he has to do to keep his fighter safe.
Where Matchroom matches their fighters a bit tougher. Just imagine that because this fight don't happen, Boots ends up opposite the ring, Bakram Murtazaliev. That is a risky fight.
Virgil ends up opposite the ring, Sebastian Fundora. Good fight, solid fighter, credible, but not as risky as fighting Bakram. For the fight to stay alive, they've both got to stay unbeaten. But Virgil stands a better chance of doing that because Oscar is a more shameless opportunist. He's calling out Errol Spence Jr., for God's sake.
Quasi-retired fighter coming off a loss that ain't fought in 3 years.
Earliest guesstimates, I'd put Boots versus Ortiz at around 1.5 to 2 years from now, because by now we all know Oscar loves to marinate fights.
Never thought this was gonna be next.